Hey, what's up? It's Rashad and Antonio. Upon further review podcast, of course, we are currently reviewing The Last of Us on HBO Max, if you're nasty. This has been a series, boy. Of course, like, share, subscribe, one of the things, man. At 20 franchise, at Hang with the Joneses. But man, like, the takeaway from me from this episode, aside from just the overall theme of like the showrunner said, like love is dangerous, which is definitely a recurring theme of every episode. This show has been a master class in how to effectively use flashbacks.
Mm,
Every time they flash back, it hasn't missed at
At all.
all. Like,
At
and
all.
I ain't trying to be hyperbolic, but I mean, every time we go back, even shoot, this 3 years, and I'm like, yo, they just be giving us the best way to have explain exposition and give exposition to the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I was wondering, were we going to get a flashback like we have in the previous two episodes? In the previous two episodes, the flashbacks were always in the front, even before the show opened and everything. And they didn't do it. I said, okay, I guess they're done with the flashbacks. Wrong, wrong. You give us like the first, like, what, about good, let's say 8 minutes of the episode of Ellie and Joel, they're
Yeah,
walking
walking through
and
the woods.
walking through the woods, scavenging. They go to Joe's like, yo, we got to make a stop at this, like a almost like a truck stop
Like a
or
gas station or
gas
something.
station, like
Yeah.
an old rundown gas station. She's like, what the hell we stopping here for? And he's like, yeah, I got a stash here, some supplies and stuff. And she's like, oh, so they go in there, and he kind of forgot where his supplies were. He's looking around like, and she's looking like, did you forget? He was like, no, I need to remember. Basically,
Girl, it's been like 2 years since I've
he
been here.
says, yeah,
Yo,
it's been
cool
some
out.
years since I've been here. And
Yo,
and
Ella be playing him all the time, yo.
yeah, she do. She do. And so, he goes looking around, and then he played her right back. And she was like, what's in here? He was like, is it anything dangerous? He was like, you. And she said, okay. Like, yeah, you got me. So,
Duly noted.
so then, she goes in the back and she finds like a little secret, I guess, like little bunker or whatever, where I guess someone was shacked up in there, and come to find out that person has been infected, and looks like they got caved in or something
Yeah,
collapsed on them.
yeah, like the whole side of the wall or something. They just was
Yeah,
like encased, they couldn't move.
yeah, couldn't move, but the eyes was looking at her, and she was looking back, and then she like just took her knife out, her little knife that she had, and she cut it open and saw like how the sepsis was just, saying
Yeah,
the
cordyceps.
cordyceps. I said sepsis, good Jesus. The cordyceps was wrapped around, like, saying the innards of that person. And
And it really calls back to last episode when
mhm,
the doctors like saying cut their
mhm.
man leg. Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing. And so then I just think, out of a fit of anger, knowing that she got bit and what's going on, she just stabs it and kills it. And the whole time I was saying, like, girl, ain't you learned nothing? Then they say that sometimes these things are connected. It's a hive mind. I was like, God, please don't let her stab this. And all of a sudden, and it's a whole bunch of them, Jake, collapsing on.
Yo, and like Ellie is reckless.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She is, it's almost like um
She has a death wish.
not even that, but you taught at school, so you understand the parallel.
Mm-hmm.
She is the smart kid with no common sense.
Yes.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's has wits about all that stuff, but like she will
Mm-hmm.
make the dumb decision because
Yeah.
she's still a kid. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
And
that's yeah.
and then too, like, saying she ain't never been outside. She ain't never been no,
That too. You know
she
what
ain't
I'm
never been
saying?
outside. She ain't never been nowhere or whatever. So, he finds his stash and stuff, and then he like leaves his gun behind. Looks like an AR-15 or something like that, a machine gun. He leaves, and she's like, "You leaving it behind?" He was like, "Look, I'm low on bullets, and ain't no bullets just roaming around out there. This is just what we're just walking around with this for, or whatever." And so, she walked, and then she like completely freaks out, like, "Wow!" And she sees a crashed airplane, and he looked at her and was like, I think he has to remember that she was born after the I guess this apocalypse or whatever like that. And she's looking like, and then she says, "Have you ever been in one of those?" He was like, once or twice or whatever. And she was just so excited, like, oh my God. She was like, can you, she says, I've never flown. Can you imagine just flying? And he was like, yeah, like,
Yeah, girl, that's what
yeah,
we
little
did.
girl, did it. Let's keep it moving or
And
whatever.
he was like, they said the same thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
They didn't say the same thing or
I was
whatever.
like, it was
And then
so
right,
unnecessary to
because
say.
she was like, did they all just come down at one time? But he was like, basically, yeah, that's that. And you think about it, that's what
Episode
happened in
one.
episode 1, where he had his flashback. He was him and his daughter and his brother were trying to get away. And so they're talking and they're walking, and then it takes a turn in the episode. So he was like, hey, let's just cut through the forest or whatever. She was like, wow. He was like, yeah, some stuff you don't need to see. And she was like, whatever. It goes and sees like kind of like a mass grave of like civilians that were basically got the order from like the what they call them, Fedra,
Yeah, FERPA.
Fedra, whatever, to
Yeah.
basically like, yo, we don't got no more room here. Yo, gun them people, kill them people, or what? And just killed them. And she was just like, and she saw it and was like, yo, I bet you. She says, was most of them. She said they probably weren't even infected. He was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, they weren't. They just ain't had no room, and they'd do something with it. And then it zooms in on a piece of cloth, and it flashes back to the person wearing that cloth, which was a lady. And she's wearing a dress. And the whole time I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna follow this lady. And I was like, oh man, they're gonna show them killing this lady with her baby in her hand and
I
stuff.
was about to say, man. I said, don't just show you. Y'all can't just kill this black lady like this.
Yeah,
I was like,
right.
please don't do that to me.
Right.
He's so upset with y'all.
Come to find out, that was just to mess with our heads, because that wasn't
Yeah.
even the episode. They was in like a small town or a neighborhood or
Yeah. There
something.
was like 10 miles outside of Boston, something
Right,
like that.
10 miles outside. So the flashback goes, and you see the lady, like I said, from that cloth or whatever, and like her and other people in this little town or neighborhood or whatever, and they're like being loaded up, and they're all trying to go to a quarantine zone, except for one person, my man Bill. My man Bill is a survivalist. He's a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, he's a doomsday prepper,
My
boy.
man had daggone cameras hooked up on the different buildings around the whole daggone, sitting there looking at the people. It was like he could hear the people walking upstairs, like, yeah, nope, not gonna get me. And then they finally leave, and he comes out, sees the coast is clear. It's like, yep, we good. And my man basically just grabs his pickup truck, it drives around and just picking up some more supply. Mind you, when they show the light come on in his basement, his little bunker he had, my man had possibly every gun known to man.
Yo, he was so ready. He was so prepared. Overly prepared.
And he had sulfur. And I was like, yo, what is my man what is my man planning here? Like,
he had all the materials, yo.
My man went to like every shop in, I guess, the area, and just racked up, and he was inside the Home Depot, and then he saw that I guess they shut the power down in that town, and he was like, that didn't take long. And he's just like, all right, whatever. He goes to the power plant, rams the gate open. Yeah, let me turn this back. Basically turns it back on, has like a industrial sized generator. It keeps the town like basically powered up, and all this stuff, and that's going on. And he's basically living his life, has his food, and he has a wine cellar and everything. And then we get a flash forward to 4 years later.
Something like that.
Yeah, 4 years later, my man has fortified the entire little neighborhood, town, or whatever.
Your man got a gate in the front
with an electric opener. He was like, yep, let's go with an electric opener and everything. And you just like, man, I was like, yo, I need to find this dude if the apocalypse ever happened, because he was there for like, for what, 4 years, nothing really, I guess, popped off or anything like that. He has stuff set up. He set up booby traps around the perimeter. The funniest one was that booby trap with a little shot, I guess the little makeshift shotgun.
Oh yeah,
he sat there and said, he was just laughing at his handiwork.
He's like, yeah, keep on walking.
Keep on walking. Bow. He's like, like that. And so then he sees that one of his triggers let off again, and he's like, somebody fell into the daggone pit that he has over there. He goes, sees the pit, and he sees a guy. He hears a guy in there, and he's like, "Hey, you." He said, the guy was like, "Look, I'm not infected. I'm not infected. I just fell in here." And he was like, "You got a weapon?" No. Why did it take you so long to say that? He was just like, yeah, why it take you so long to say that? He was like, hey man, look, like I was gonna lie, but I was like, hey, ain't no purpose of in lying about it. He was like, no, I don't have a weapon. He was like, what you doing here? I'm trying to get to the Boston, he said, I'm trying to get to the Boston, quarantine
QZ,
zone.
yeah.
And he was just like, oh, it's just you by your. So he asked all the right questions. Oh, it's just you by yourself. He was like, no, started off with 10. And I'm here, man. That's all it is. And he was just like, can you please just let me out? I just want to get to the Boston quarantine zone. And he, drops the ladder down, lets him out. He stops him halfway up the ladder. It's like, stay right there. He pulls out one of the readers that they use in the. I was like, how did he get?
Dude was like, where'd you get this from?
He said, where'd you get this from? Don't ask no questions. Don't ask no questions. And he checked him. It was like, all right, he's clean. He's not infected. Lets him up. And then it's just like, yeah, Boston is that way. Yeah, so go ahead on. He was like, hey, man, I haven't ate in 2 days. You think I could? He was like, I know that sounds ridiculous considering things, but he was just like, yeah, I could tell you, give you a free meal. You go back and tell everybody, and everybody would come here for a free lunch like it's Arby's. And he was just like, Arby's wasn't free. You had to pay for and Bill just looks at him like, touche, or whatever. He asked him for the guy name. So his name is Frank. So Bill and Frank become, episodes. So Bill loosens up a little bit, lets the guy come in, and he was like, oh my God, you got a shower. And I could just imagine what that felt like, not having a shower. My man was in there. He was like, hey, I got some clothes. Give me like 5 more minutes. Oh my God.
And I get 5 more minutes in the shower. Like, that was so real. Cause like, you know how it is, like, especially if you've been working or whatever, or if it's like freezing, raining outside, you taking a hot shower is everything.
Them after band camp showers were some of the best stuff of life, or
like I remember we had to play in like freezing rain one day. I said, yeah. I said, I'm first thing I'm taking a hot shower. Yeah, anyway,
definitely.
But yeah, so he was really excited about that. And then this is where like it gets really, really interesting because I was sort of kind of picking up on the vibes, but I was like, I don't know if they're gonna do it like that. And they did. So sit down and eat. Your man is acting like he is like, in a former life was at a 5-star restaurant, Michelin rated. You know what I'm saying? The way
he was like, oh my God, this food is so delicious. He was like, everything's delicious when you're hungry.
Yeah, your man fixed the plate right. For perfect plating and visuals. Your man had the wine like he was a sommelier. He's like, poured it with his thumb on the bottom. I was like, man, it's fancy. You know what I'm saying? And he was just like, oh, this food is so good. And the funny thing to me was Frank did not want to leave.
No. Frank was like, I need to find me a way.
Boston? This ain't gonna be in the QZ, yo. I'm like, right. This is about as good as it's gonna get.
Right. He was like, do you get many people up here? He was like, no one bothers to come out here or anything like that. So my man Bill had this whole town to himself or whatnot.
Frank was like, I gotta get in these draws because I can't leave.
Right. So we're gonna get to that. That's so Frank was like, oh my God. Frank was plotting hard, yo. Frank was like, oh my God, is that an antique piano? And Bill was like, yeah, it's 1945. He was like, oh my God. And he says, oh, I gotta play this. And he's like, or whatever. And he just goes through it. He's looking like, yeah, these songs don't seem anything like you or anything. And that was Frank fishing, because I think Frank felt the vibes but was fishing. And the next thing you know, he played this one song. He was like, no, you can't play this song or whatever. And then Bill plays the same song but plays it more lovingly and everything.
Yeah. And like I be forgetting that like Nick Offerman can actually kind of sing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Yeah. And then he was just like, oh my God. He says, was that song about a girl? And he was just like, not a girl. And Frank was like, gotcha. I was like, gotcha, bitch. Gotcha, bitch. Gotcha, bitch. Gotcha.
He said, hook. I'm about to really roll in. You know what I'm saying?
And so, come to find out, Bill is gay, and Frank is gay as well. And then Frank just tells him, go upstairs and take a shower. And I was like,
this is really forward. You know
this is some really forward stuff. And then, Bill is like, okay. Like, it's just funny how Bill was such this tough, you know what I'm saying, like survivalist guy. And this guy comes into his life and just completely like just softened him down. He was like, oh, okay. And then Frank made himself at home. My man daggone got in the bed naked, bucket naked, waiting for her to come out, and just started talking, and basically was like, hey, come on in, and started talking to him. And he was like, you ever done this before? He was just like, once with a girl. He was like, once with a girl. And he was like, okay, whatever. And they do, and they become.
And then we like transition to like 3 years later.
Right.
And now they're just like the old married couple arguing in the middle of the street.
Of this deserted town or whatever the neighborhood or whatever it is. I'm just like,
your man, Frank is like, yo, all I want to do is paint.
Yeah.
He's like, if you say anything about resource management again, nobody's gonna come take. We don't need the paint. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Like it was really funny.
That was like a real couple, like
to show the progression,
of their relationship.
Yeah, and even before I forget, like and again, effective flashbacks also shows how even though the world changed around. Mm-hmm. Like these people have this almost utopia, you know what I'm saying, and they were able to kind of live their life and have this thing together.
Because the town still looked like it was kept intact. The town looked like it was still kept intact, especially their house. They kept their house up and everything. So, he was like, Frank goes on to be like, hey, I just want to paint. I want to do this, but he's like, hey, we might get guests one day. And then Bill's like, guests? Hey, man, we ain't getting no guests. Ain't nobody coming up here. What are you talking about, bro? Like, it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Frank is like, well, I've been corresponding with the woman over the radio.
He said, what?
Was pissed. He said,
so I've been talking to a nice lady on the radio.
He was like, what? And then it just flashed forward, and you see that it's Tess and Joel.
Tess and Joel.
And here's the thing: they're having a front lawn dinner, which is even more funny and ridiculous.
It feels more like a lunch. It's like it's like 2:00 or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a front lawn luncheon. And I was like, this is the ridiculousness of it all. Like it's an apocalypse going on out there, and they're having a luncheon on the. And here's the thing: you got Bill sitting there with the gun in his hand like this the whole time eating. And then he was like, Bill, just come on, man, just they seem okay, just chill. And then like you just see Bill and Joel bonding over the fact of, yeah, I don't trust y'all don't trust us, but I respect what you got going on type here.
No, your man said, hey, get that gun on my face. Get that
gun out my face, man. You know how bold you got to be to tell somebody who's pointing a gun at you and you don't have a gun pointed at them. So you'll get that gun out my face.
Well, he's like, oh, no, all right, I get it.
All right,
no, we know it's really funny too. How them boys wasn't even eating their food for real.
Yeah,
they just was looking at each other.
Right, they were just there. Right, Tess and Frank was chowing down, having a good old time. Like they were best friends.
I got some shit in the house. He's like, don't let her in the house.
Don't let her in the house. And then, don't let her in the house. And then you get Joel like, oh, don't go in there. And like they sit there like, yeah, okay, whatever. You just got. They just sit there eyeballing each other, for what is, said.
Funny. Yeah,
right. And so it goes on some more in the episode, and I think it's still about a good 4, maybe 5 years.
Before you even get to that, when they were talking back and forth, he said, "Yeah, this kind of shows you how they actually start to have a correspondence with them
Mm-hmm.
because of resources." Dude was like, Joe was like, "Hey, you got about a good year and a half left on that fence. You need to fortify that.
Yeah.
I got some stuff. You know what I'm saying? That can hook you up. You know what he
Uh-huh.
did? Your
Mm-hmm.
man found some old cars and put the cars to block the entrance." I was like,
Yeah. I was like, that's what you got, sir. Bet. You know what I'm saying? With that. And so, a little more time passed, and like you see Frank, they're jogging, they're exercising, running through like the neighborhood, like everything is fine. And you see Bill's like, "Hey man, I can't do this or whatever." And apparently Bill is older than Frank. We're not sure exactly how much older. He was like, "I'm sorry that I'm older than you." And he was like, "It's okay. I like older men and whatever." He was like, "Look, let's just go around here. I want to show you something." And then he goes around it and he sees like a little patch of strawberries that are being grown. And he's like, "Oh my God." He says, "How? Where?" And he was like, "Yeah, I traded a gun for a bag of seeds.
I said,
Let's
"What
trade a
gun?"
gun to Joel and Tess for a bag of seeds. What gun did you trade?" He said, "It was a small one. It was a small one." And so they had like some strawberries blooming back there, and they started eating, and the pure joy of them eating a strawberry in this time period, it just made you feel like, yo, I could I can't even imagine like just, oh my God, living in a period where you like don't have this no more, and then you have it and you're just like, they were just so
Yeah,
elated.
it's like just like the
Simple
very
things.
little mundane things that
Yeah.
we seemingly take for granted. Yeah, man, like that. It was just like a lot of those things, and then like all things, all good things must come to an end.
Yeah. So then we get to present day. Well, present day
Oh my, we
2023.
almost. Oh no, that
No,
evening,
party. Yeah, that evening,
that evening,
you know,
they
some because
homies.
Joel even said, "Hey, I know you out here by yourself. You ain't got to worry about Fedra coming out here, but yo,
Let them worry about
scavengers,
we're scavengers and raiders.
scavengers and raiders, and boy, let's just say them scavengers and raiders made a big mistake
Yeah,
coming out
they
there messing with MacGyver Bill, because my man
messing with MacGruber. You know what I'm saying?
MacGruber out there saying, my man,
MacGruber.
they tripped that wire and there. Boom! They blew themselves up. Flames were being thrown.
Yo, I mean,
And,
like he had the funny part was, well, we see Frank wakes up all late. You know what I'm saying?
right.
He run downstairs, grabs a gun out the dresser drawer, comes in the
Uh-huh.
street, and Bills is in the middle of the street just
Just
shooting.
pow, just popping with
And
the
the funny
rifle.
thing was, Bill wouldn't have got shot if it wasn't for Frank coming out there telling him to get back in the house. That's how
Yeah.
I feel because I
I felt
feel
that too, because
I feel Bill had a lockdown. You know what I'm
he
saying?
took his eyes off of him and said, "Hey, get back in." Ow! Then he realized he got shot, and they had to get him in the house. And then he was like, "Hey," and so Bill was preparing to die. He thought he was going to die, and he told Frank, "Hey, call Joe." And I thought it was just funny that the tension between them. He was just like, "Hey, call Joe. He'll take care of you." So
Yeah,
he'll take
because
care of
because
you.
yeah, because he knew that like Joel's was about that life too.
Right. He
The
was.
funniest part was he said, "Yeah, don't worry about them outside.
Yeah, don't worry about them. I was like, keep the gas going. Don't turn the gas off.
Keep the gas going."
Right. He's sitting there dying, like, oh no. Oh, don't worry about them. Keep the gas on. Oh, it showed up. They all died, trying to,
Ah,
saying,
man, that was hilarious, yo.
right. So then we get to present day 2023, and it shows that Bill survived, but Frank is like, has some type of disease or something where he can't even walk. He's in a
Yeah,
wheelchair.
it almost like
And
he
they're old.
has like
Yeah.
MS
Uh-huh.
or something like that. Because he was basically saying, even before the world
They
was
didn't
like
have a
this,
cure.
there was no cure for
There
this.
was no cure for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's either some sort of like he has like cancer or MS or
Yeah.
something. It feels like something
Yeah.
debilitating.
And they're old by this time too. I'm guessing they got to be like, at least Bill got to be like in his 60s or something like that,
Yeah,
and Frank is like in his 50s or whatever. So they like the change in how their appearance was very evident. And you just saw them going through their, little daily life that day, and then, you know, Bill puts Frank to bed, and then Bill wakes up the next morning and sees Frank in the wheelchair, and he got up by himself in the wheelchair. He was like, "Hey, man, you don't be doing that. You know what I'm saying? You could be hurt yourself." And he was like, "Hey, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about falling asleep sitting up, man. Look, this is my last night here anyway." And Bill was like, "What? Like, what you mean my last night here?" And Frank basically laid it all on the line. He says, "Listen, I've had some great days and some bad days. Even had some bad days with you." He says, "What you're going to do is give me one last great day, and you're going to do what I tell you to do, and you're not going to complain." He was like, "We're going to go down to the boutique. I'm going to pick out an outfit. You're going to wear it, and we're going to get married." He says, he says, "Then you're going to fix an amazing dinner. We're going to eat, we're going to drink, and then we're going to end the night with you giving me a glass of wine and pouring this in it." And I couldn't really tell what it was,
It was
but
some pills.
yeah, some
Yeah, I mean,
pills.
either way, it's like
Right.
enough to OD on.
Right. OD on. And he was just like, "Then you're going to take me upstairs. I'm going to go to sleep." And he was like, "Then that'll be it." And you see the curtain.
Yo, you know where Frank got them pills from too?
He traded them
From Joel,
from
because
Joel.
Joel be popping pills.
Remember, remember for people, remember for the first episode, he was like, "Yeah, they got a factory in Atlanta that still make they still making guns and basically perks and oxy in Atlanta, a factory down there." People still looking, man. This apocalypse sucks. You want to get high? All right, cool. We're gonna make sure people can get high. And that's a good point. I didn't think about that until you just sat there and said that. And so, they go through the day doing all that. They get dressed up, they eat, they drink, and he pours the drink for him, and he puts the pills in, he drinks it, and then next thing you know, you see Bill be like, "Yep," he does it too, and he's looking at him like, well, he was like, "Look, man, I'm old. I can't keep going on. I can't go on without you." And it was very Romeo and Juliet-ish.
Yeah, and
How it ended,
for
yeah.
me, like I was like, yo, like I said, Bill's gonna do it too,
Yeah.
and I didn't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I said, man, I said, Bill's going. I said, yo, Bill done laced the whole wine bottle. He said,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it had enough here to kill a horse. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
And you
They're
saw
both gonna die.
Frank was like, "I would be mad, but this is so romantic," you know, type thing. And I kind of understand, man, because it's like, all these years, so you had your time before Frank came, and he was just, living, just surviving. Frank came and actually gave him a reason to live. He fell in love, and they had, what I'm saying, what about, well, let's say 15, maybe 19 years of, about 15,
yeah, because
19.
yeah, 3 years later.
Yeah, so
Oh,
about a good 17, 15
yeah,
years
yeah,
together
you had a minute.
of being together, and that, and then knowing that this person is going to die, and they're like, "Look, man, I can't do this no more. Just go ahead and euthanize me." And he was like, "I don't want to go on without you," and he does it. And they go upstairs, they lay down, and then you see, like, about a day or two later, like a day or two later or whatever. No, I ain't gonna say a day or two. It probably was like a month or so later, because the food looked kind of molded and old on the table.
It's,
I'm gonna say about
it's about a month or two later.
a month or two later, you see Ellie and Joel pull on up. Joel has the code to the gate, goes inside the gate, and he's like, "Frank, Bill," he's looking for him, and he tells Ellie, "Hey, don't move." And Ellie finally does something.
I say, oh,
She
she
said
actually listened.
she
Good for
actually paid
her.
attention. He goes to the door and sees that it's locked, but Ellie finds the note that's left for Joel, and she reads it, and it's just so fun. It was just so funny. So for whoever finds this, but most likely it'll be Joel. Most likely it'll be Joel, because anybody else would probably be dead, because you knew the access code or whatever. And he basically told them, like, "Hey, man, like, hey, everything I got is yours. The access code to get to the bunker is the reverse order of the code of the main gate." And was just basically told him, like, "Hey, said I found what I was meant to live for, and that was Frank, and we did what we did. He was like, whoever finds this, respect us. Please don't come upstairs. I left the window open so it doesn't stink. Like, you know, and to me, what that sounds like? That doesn't sound like a Bill thing. That sounds like a Frank thing more than, saying
Yeah, yeah,
more than
yeah,
anything. He was
yeah.
like, just, get the window open so he doesn't stink or anything, but it's all yours. And he was like, hey man, you've got what saying, I found what I was lived for. We're protectors and this and that. And saying, use all this to protect Tess. He was like, and like Ellie's reading this and she couldn't even bring herself to say it. And she just looked at Joel, and Joel took the note, read it, went outside, kind of had a moment to himself, and then realized, like, yeah, it's my job to protect this girl, to do this. And, they basically take advantage of the amenities of the household, taking a hot shower, finding, saying, filling up on supplies, everything, getting a battery charged up. And they take his truck. And before they leave, Joel basically tells Ellie, like, hey, you're going to come with me because I got to go find my brother and I'm going to drop you off. We got some rules we got to do. You got to do what listen to what I tell you, and other stuff. And she was like, he's like, do you understand?
He said, rule number one, don't talk about Tess.
Don't talk about Tess. Number one, don't bring her up no more. Don't bring her up no more. It's we moving on. And then she was like, do you understand? And she was like, I understand. And while
So
he was getting
like
together,
whatever you say goes.
right, whatever say goes. And she wanted to get like one of them big guns, and he was like, no, whatever. But she found the gun that she wanted, and she hid it, so she has her own piece now. But the thing is, Joel don't know anything about it, and they're off on the road heading west, to Wyoming or whatever, to see what's going to happen. And it was such a greatly done episode. I like to call this the Frank and Bill episode. But also one thing too we forgot to mention, um, in the beginning when Ellie was talking with Joel about, man, how do you think this started? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got to take somebody to
that's
fight,
what I was about to get to in regard,
yeah,
because like, all right, so we're gonna do this together. So my oh yeah, again, great episode of TV. Comment of the week. All right. Thank you, people online. The socials are starting to get back, especially on YouTube, yo. Y'all are really coming through. Anyway, dude named Mac 10 Homie. It's like a black Bart with a blue, like he's like a crip Bart. Anyway, and this is we was kind of just asking, was patient zero still alive? He said the fungus is alive. The fungus runs a hive mind. I don't even think it's called a effing hive mind, but y'all always come up with dumb shit. And patient zero is probably dead or either a bloater. That's the only thing about watching people that ain't played the game. Y'all don't be knowing what y'all talking about, sounding crazy as hell. And I was like, dog, like I was like, that's kind of the fun of watching something new. You get to theorize, but I said, but you got it, Bart. You know what I'm saying? So
sorry we didn't play the game, bro. I mean, we said this from the beginning.
I ain't got time to play games. So with that being said, as they're walking, he basically explains the whole how the wheat, you know what I'm saying, and grain, even sugar, you know what I'm saying, was still kind of produced from a grain type plant. How that got into the food supply. And there was probably some sort of like worldwide producer of it.
And you ready for this? I'm watching another person talk about last week's episode on YouTube. They said basically like Jakarta, India, whatever, that is like the largest like manufacturer of like grain, flour, and wheat in the entire world.
Yeah.
So
between like them and like Ukraine and Russia, they produce a lot of wheat and grain too. Hence why bread was so high at one point.
Right. And then too, it didn't make sense too. Think about it in the first episode where what she was like, hey, you got any pancake mix? It was a lot of stuff with flour, pancake mix. You saw that neighbor was
flour.
The grandmother, the old lady who started
like
tweaking
oatmeal,
like no, not it was the biscuits. Remember, he was like, you want some biscuits? And then later on that day, his wife was making the cookies.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah,
lot
there
of the
was
stuff is connected.
yeah. Yeah. So it's funny, man. Like I wonder, like in the real world, like who would be that company? Would that be like maybe like Cisco or like Nabisco? Because Nabisco is like has like stuff everywhere.
General Mills.
General Mills more like the US, but they
Yeah.
do produce stuff outside. But I'm thinking like Nabisco.
Nabisco. Yeah.
Because they got like they'll have like like foreign crap, but it's the same product, but it's just in a different name.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So either
But
way, man,
solid episode
great
regardless.
episode, man.
Great
Like
episode, man. So
super
yeah.
sad. But yeah, but still well written. Neil Druckmann and the crew doing an amazing job. Oh, yo, real quick. The person who actually did the acting, the mocap for Tess in the video game, like the real life person, she actually passed away.
Yes, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
She
I
just passed.
forgot
Rest
her
in
name was something Wegman.
yeah, something with me. Yeah, we did a
Yeah,
story to that today at my job or whatever. So
yeah. So recipes to her, man.
rest
She
in peace to
has
her. Yeah,
like 3 kids, so she died of cancer.
yeah,
There's the GoFundMe for her as well.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's all we got for this one.
Mhm.
We'll be back next Monday
Mhm.
talking about this amazing show.
All right. Peace, everybody.
Peace.